So Kyrie Irving went to the Brooklyn Nets about 3 years ago. He has played, his games played since joining Brooklyn go 20 games in 2019, 54 games in 2020, and 29 games last year in 2021. Now listen, with that being said, his 54 game season in 2020, 2021, if he would have played closer to 70, maybe 65 games, Kyrie probably would have been getting some sort of MVP chatter. He had a 50-40-90 season in 2020. He had 27 points a game. He shot 20 to shoot over 50% and have 20 attempts a game. That is incredible efficiency. Throw in 6 assists, throw in 5 rebounds, throw in a steal and a half a game, only turning the ball over 2.4 times a game. It was a career year for Kyrie Irving from an efficiency standpoint, and it was the most points outside of, a 27.5-point game, like I mentioned in that 20-game season in 2019. 2020 was probably Kyrie's best season. And at this point, I think it's rough to say that there are perfect matches for Kyrie, just given what has happened off the court. And I'm not even saying it's like Kyrie Irving makes bad decisions off the court. It's just he doesn't play because of off-the-court issues. I think even in saying that, there's teams out there that would really love to have Kyrie Irving. And if he continues to play at the pace that he was playing at in 2020, the team that signs him or trades for him is going to be getting a player that can take their team from being a really good team to a possible championship contending team. So the Miami Heat, I don't know if they necessarily make sense for Kyrie Irving. I don't necessarily think that Kyrie Irving makes sense for the Miami Heat. But I see it as one of those moves where it doesn't make sense on either end, but it just somehow plays out well. I don't really think the Jimmy Butler move really made sense for Miami when they traded for him, but it's worked out pretty well. 1 finals appearance, 2 conference finals appearances, and just in general, they've been a really good regular season team since Jimmy Butler came to their franchise. Now, that is adding in the fact that they drafted Tyler Hero that year. They already had Bam Adebayo. They added some other veterans like PJ Tucker. Other guys throughout the years since Jimmy Butler has got there. However, they need one more guy to really take them over the top. It either has to be a center or it has to be a point guard. And it has to be a guy that's at the top of his capabilities and a guy who, when you compare him to the other players at his position, he's one of the top 3 to 5 guys. Kyrie Irving, when he is playing, like I said with his stats that I told you in 2020, when he's playing and he's playing well, he is one of the top 3 point guards in the NBA. And there's no question about it. If you're the Miami Heat, you have an ability not only to be able to go out and possibly sign Kyrie Irving if he does not pick up his player option, but there's an ability for them to be able to make a move trade-wise. You talk about possibly throwing in Kyle Lowry just in terms of getting the salary to offset. And then you throw in a Tyler Hero. You throw in a Duncan Robinson. You throw in, maybe, one of your reserve big men like an Omer Yurtseven. It really straps the Miami Heat for personnel, because when you're talking about a trade like this, it's going to be one of those moves where the Miami Heat give up a lot of guys in return for only one guy. But you have to hope that the other guys that you already have on the roster are going to take another step in terms of development to kind of offset the fact that you're not going to have as many bodies. And hopefully once the real offseason starts with free agency, once you have your core group of your main players with Kyrie, Bam, I don't know why I spaced on Jimmy Butler's name for so long, but Jimmy Butler, and whoever else is on the roster, you fill that out with some good role players, some good veterans. And the Miami Heat throughout, pretty much my whole entire lifetime have just done an incredible job of roster building. So I would take a bet on them to not only bring in Kyrie Irving and make it work, but be able to make it work in terms of filling out the entire roster around them. All right, Pelicans fans, I'm about to completely take apart the team that brought you your first. It's weird because it wasn't even postseason success that you lost in the first round. You won 2 games out of 6. I don't know if it's really postseason success. And I think the New Orleans Pelicans right now are in a spot where if they don't improve the roster, they're in a real position to have a disappointing year next year. I honestly look at what this New Orleans Pelicans team looks at going into next year, like what the Cleveland Browns were a couple years ago. You know, they had that one year where they make the playoffs and they win their first playoff game in, what, like 30, 40 years? And then their next year is a complete dud. Now, the Pelicans, I mean, I guess they won 2 playoff games, but their playoff winning percentage was 33%. It's not like they had an incredible postseason. So there's nothing really for the Pelicans. I mean, if you're just going to say, oh, we feel good about last year because we went 36 and 46 and we made the playoffs, I can't really make an argument to go against you, but at the same time, I can only try to convince you that a team next year where you're going to be relying on Devontae Graham at $11.5 million, Larry Nance at $10 million, Jackson Hayes, who, listen, I have said things about Jackson Hayes before on this channel, but look into the Jackson Hayes off-the-court issues. It's a surprise that this guy has not been suspended for what has happened. So just, I'll let you read into that yourself. And there's other guys on this team where, you know, you could make a trade for Kyrie Irving. You could give up a Jonas Valanciunas. You could give up a Devontae. Obviously, you could give up a Devontae Graham. He didn't play in the playoffs last year. You could give up a Kira Lewis Jr., who, listen, it's about that time for Kira Lewis, where it's like, you've shown us nothing. I'm sorry. I get it. You guys love Jose Alvarado, but if you're going into the playoffs next year with Jose Alvarado as your starting guard, you're not going to make it very far. You need to capitalize on the fact that you have 2 really good players right now. 2 very good players right now in CJ McCollum and Brandon Ingram. And right now, we don't know about Zion Williamson. And I understand that, you know, we don't know about Kyrie either because there's a chance he gets to New Orleans and he just doesn't play. But look, you're in a conference where the top of the conference is absolutely loaded, about 5 or 6 deep. The Warriors go 5 or 6 deep, and once they get James Wiseman in a second year of Jonathan Kuminga, they're going to be even better. The Memphis Grizzlies, after they make their offseason moves, are going to be even better. The Phoenix Suns, depending on how they want to attack this year, they could be even better than what they were this year. There's going to be some really good teams in the Western Conference, and you really run the risk of regressing to the mean if you do not make improvements to this roster. And look, Kyrie Irving is one of the best players in the NBA when he plays, and point guard is a position right now that the New Orleans Pelicans do not have a surplus of, and they don't have even an average guy at the position. So Kyrie Irving is both not only a perfect answer for him, because I feel like going to New Orleans, it's not a quiet area, to say the least, but it's a place where he could kind of just fit in. I feel like it's a place where he really could fit in. One that's also very, very interesting. The Detroit Pistons. Now, you might say it doesn't make sense because they already have Cade. Look, a pairing of Cade Cunningham and Kyrie Irving not only excites me, I would go as far as to say it would be the move to take the Detroit Pistons from about a 16, 17-year drought of being non-competitive. And look, I know they made the playoffs a couple of years ago when Blake was just absolutely putting that franchise on his back. But this franchise has had 0 success in the last decade and a half. And they're really close, though. They're very, very close. Their roster is pretty much set. I mean, the team has Cade. The team has guys like Isaiah Stewart. The team has guys like Hamidou Diallo, who's really played his role. Frank Jackson, who's come in and been a really good role player. Sadiq Bey, who's a great shooter. But there's still a couple guys short. And I think that Kyrie Irving wouldn't be the final move where you look at it and you say, oh, the Detroit Pistons are going to be, you know, this great team for years to come. I think you add Kyrie Irving on a 3 to 4 year deal. You maximize Cade Cunningham's potential as well. Because I think Cade Cunningham doesn't really need that role model for his game. Because Cade Cunningham is, I mean, he's a really good player already. Cade is a very good player already. If you haven't watched Cade Cunningham, I wouldn't even say look at the highlights, because the highlights don't do enough justice for Cade Cunningham. Yes, he's a rookie and he had his rookie mistakes last year, but I'm willing to bet that next year Cade Cunningham is going to take that LaMelo Ball type leap, and it's going to be an even better type leap, because I believe more in Cade Cunningham than I do in LaMelo Ball to be able to take the next step from being a really good rookie to being one of the best players at his position. And at a young age like that, not only would Cade Cunningham be one of the best players at his position, but you pair him with somebody like Kyrie Irving, who can give him the confidence of playing with somebody next to him who has the same sort of level of talent and the same sort of level of ability. It's going to take this Detroit Pistons team. It probably takes them to the playoffs. And look, after whoever they draft this year, whether it ends up being one of either Paolo, Jabari, or Chet Holmgren, it's probably going to be, one of Paolo or Jabari. But you add one of those guys, you add Kyrie Irving, you have the makings of a team that could, in a weak Eastern Conference, not just be one of the play-in teams, but be one of the top 6 seeds in the Eastern Conference. Now, the last team I'm going to talk about, I'm going to keep it short because it's the most obvious team. It has to be the Lakers that I talk about next, right? I mean, it just has to be. The story would be too good, right? The story would just be too good. Kyrie Irving and LeBron James bring the Cleveland Cavaliers, the city of Cleveland, the first championship in 50 years. They break up. Kyrie thinks that he needs to be the one running the show. He goes to Boston. He has his moment where he says, I had to call LeBron. I realized I was a dumbass. I had to call LeBron. And then even after he calls LeBron, he still has his bullshit in Boston. And then that goes on for like another year and a half. And then he gets to Brooklyn, and then he plays just over 100 games out of 240 that he could have played. Look, the story's too good for these two to end up playing with each other again in LA. And in LA, but it's one of those moves where I just don't see how it works. But just off the fact that it's the LA Lakers and it's a franchise like the Brooklyn Nets, who obviously in the last 5 years has not made the proper moves to keep this team going from a good young team to a great team. They just decided, we're going to just ship off all this talent that took us from a bottom-feeding franchise into a playoff team, and we're just going to ship the point guard to Golden State. We're going to not care about young talent. We're just going to invest in 2 players who are getting towards the end of their prime, or I guess in Kyrie Irving's case, he's just not going to play. But for the LA Lakers, I think this is a move where you look at it and you say, okay, throw away the last 3 years. Throw away the fact that Kyrie Irving has played below 50% of the games in the last 3 years for the Brooklyn Nets. Throw away the fact that he is outspoken, to say the least, about whether it's the coach, whether it's the front office, whether it's about the personnel. Throw out everything you know about Kyrie Irving and treat it as a new situation that you've never seen before. You've never seen Kyrie Irving before, right? That's the only situation I see the LA Lakers being able to pull this off, is they actually go all in on Kyrie. And they actually say, LeBron and Kyrie with Anthony Davis, or without Anthony Davis. I think that's still a possibility as well, as maybe AD gets traded to Brooklyn for Kyrie. I don't see how that works, but I could see it happening just because it's LA and it's Brooklyn. I could see a lot of things happening just because it's LA. And just off of that fact, I think Kyrie, and listen, Kyrie added to this team could be a really good team. It's just, we don't know if he would even be playing if he goes to the Lakers. We don't know if he's going to be playing with whatever team he goes to, right? But I think the LA Lakers, it's just hard, right? Because it's like, I don't know if I can really tell you that I believe that there's a team that Kyrie Irving could go to where he feels like he could play 70 to 80 games a season. And it seems like now in today's NBA, you're not considered a durable player and you're not considered a valuable player if you can't play at least 65 plus games a season. And for Kyrie Irving, that's been something that's been really difficult for him over the last 3 seasons. And a lot of teams aren't going to really be willing to take a shot, but I think there's really a few teams that could take the shot and not only be able to handle everything that comes with Kyrie Irving, but be able to handle not having him around for a while. And like I said, I think that's New Orleans. I think that's Detroit. I think it's the LA Lakers to a certain extent, and I think it's the Miami Heat. But really, there's not another franchise out there that I really look at. I mean, you're going to put them in New York, and you're going to say, okay, Kyrie, let's fix everything. It's not going to happen in Houston. It's not going to happen sure ain't happening in Sacramento. And it's not going to happen with any of these other teams that are, have good amount of cap space. But LA, Detroit, Charlotte, or not Charlotte. Why would I say Charlotte? Fuck Charlotte. LA, Detroit, New Orleans, and Miami. Those are really the only teams I could see it working out.